Hello and welcome in another edition of our Coaches Corner, where every week I try to get with college coaches from around the country, all levels, all divisions, in hopes of giving parents and more importantly, student athletes some information and insights into the realities of today's world within college baseball. I'm really proud and honored to be able to talk to Division One JUCO last 2024 national champion, Blinn University head baseball coach Dusty Hart. Dusty, I'm really grateful that you have some time to join us today, and looking forward to chatting with you.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you having me. Appreciate what you do for college baseball. I think it's phenomenal.
Well, I appreciate those kind words, and really want to start here, Dusty. We had a chance to talk a little bit before we went live here, and can you talk about the landscape today versus maybe 4 or 5 years ago? Post COVID, the world of college baseball now is really top to bottom filled with really high level quality athletes. Talk a little bit about that with regard to the JUCO experience for student athletes.
No, it is. I mean, college baseball right now to me is probably as talented as it's ever been since I've been doing this, which would go all the way back to 1998. There's just limited roster spots and guys are having a hard time finding places to play, even getting an opportunity to go play college baseball. So, um, COVID and the draft, it's just changed the game for sure.
One of the things that a lot of parents or athletes think is, well, I'll just go from high school to JUCO. I'll just go find a JUCO. I'll play JUCO and then I'll go to a 4 year school. Everybody's trying to play at that JUCO level. Give us a little insight on, the caliber of student athlete that you're looking for at Blinn or that plays at your level within your conference.
Well, we don't shy away from any player. I mean, I don't 5-star, 4-star, we go head to head with LSU and University of Texas on players. Now we don't win that battle very often. But when you're going to LSU, they haven't made a living on signing bad players. I mean, they're stacking players on top of players on top of players. And so, sometimes those kids do want to play right away. They want an opportunity to play as a freshman in college and they don't necessarily want to wait 2 or 3 years. And so JUCO at that point becomes a viable option just because everybody in the dugout is going to be 18, 19, 20 years old. You're not going to have any 23, 24-year-old grad transfers that have had 6,000 collegiate innings under their belt. And you're going to have to compete always. I think at any level of college baseball, you're going to have to compete for playing time. But it's a little easier to compete with guys that, it's their first or second go around as opposed to their fourth, fifth, sixth go around.
Can you talk a little bit about how Blinn and how your staff help prepare athletes, for that next level, whether that's 4 year schools or potentially even professional baseball?
I think you gotta teach them how to work. I mean, that's the biggest probably difference between high school and college. In high school, you're getting probably an hour to 3 hours tops a day as a team practice, and so college becomes a lifestyle. You really have to teach them how to be able to lift weights and eat right, sleep right, do the things that it takes to be successful in the game now. Like when I played, I don't even think we had a team lift. We didn't even lift weights in college.
Right.
It was like this. It was almost bad for you to lift. Like everybody would tell you, like you don't want to get too big and too strong. And looking back now, I'm like, man, what was
Bad info.
terrible advice. We should have been lifting every single day and getting as big and as strong and as fast as we could. And, we didn't have X or Twitter or Instagram. And, all these guys today, I would have loved to have the knowledge at my fingertips that is available today to these guys. But you do have to be very careful on who you're listening to and getting advice from because there's really good advice, but there's also really bad advice.
So I don't want to go down that path necessarily, but I want to talk about, let me rephrase a question. How how can you allow parents and most importantly student athletes to understand it's an individual process, meaning you can't follow other people. You have to have a unique individual approach to becoming the best version of yourself, and that's really what it takes. Just because this worked for someone else doesn't necessarily it's going to work for you. Can you talk a little bit about when you're working with these young athletes out of high school, you're teaching them time management skills, daily routines, but it's their taking ownership of their process as a student athlete. Can you talk a little bit about that from a preparation perspective for each athlete within your program?
Yeah, I mean, that's in my experience, a lot of high school kids and their parents are looking for the quote unquote right way. And I don't think there is a right way. I think every single kid, it's a different path, you know. Clearly some kids are really talented kids that were just blessed with a lot of talent from God and or wherever, you know, they came out and were swinging a bat a lot harder or throwing a baseball a lot harder than other kids were. And you know, I think like Paul Skeens is a good example. I mean, the
Right.
guy's throwing 100 miles an hour when he's 19 years old. Not everybody's going to be doing that. So that doesn't mean you can't get there. I wish there was a flip you could switch and just be great, but unfortunately, there is no switch. I mean, I think if there was, we would all have flipped it at some point in our lives, and so I think figuring out where you need to grow is probably the most important thing, learning who you are as a player, what you do good on a baseball field and, you know, figuring out what you don't do good on a baseball field is maybe just as important so you can go to work on those things. And late bloomers, you know, everybody develops at different rates. So some guys might not be fully matured till they're 25 or 26 years old. So patience is a huge virtue to have in this game. I mean, you got to be patient. You got to look 6 months in advance. You can't just say, "Oh, well, I did this and this and this last week and it's not paying off." You're not necessarily gonna see the payoff in a week or 2 weeks. You're really working for 2 or 3 years down the road, and we tell our guys it's kinda like building a house. You know, you start with a foundation, good fundamentals, and then you're laying bricks every single day and you're building that house. And so eventually the house is going to be pretty big. You know, you're adding bricks to the house. And so you're growing. And so hopefully the end goal is in 5 or 6 years, your house is big and strong and you have that good foundation of fundamentals and hopefully you get there. But you know, the hard part is only 1% of these guys are gonna make the big leagues, so you definitely have to have some faith that the process is gonna pay off for you.
Well, one of the pieces to the faith component is having an understanding of the talent that you're facing, and you know you see that at during your fall practices, you're competing against your teammates, and there's more kind of continuity at the college level. Your teammates, there's not a lot of separation with regard to skill, speed, size, etc. Can you talk a little bit about that high school athlete coming into the JUCO experience? You know, now you're facing lineups 1 through 9. You know, you can't just try to throw fastballs by guys. Conversely, as hitters, you're not going to get, you know, 3-1 cherry fastballs. You're going to get the changeups and the sliders. Talk a little bit about that as far as teaching the younger athletes. You're facing really strong talent every pitch, every at bat. Talk a little bit about that coming from high school and why you need to be mentally tough and mentally disciplined, not just physically tough.
Well, mental toughness to me is the most important component because baseball is obviously hard. You know, you're gonna have a ton of setbacks, and the majority of kids will just give up the first time that they kinda get punched in the mouth, so, um once again, there is no wrong way. You just have to find the right way for you. It doesn't even matter, and this is gonna sound crazy coming from me, but we tell our guys all the time, like, it doesn't even matter what name is on the front of the jersey. Like, the goal stays the same. You're working hard in order to play good baseball. And so the sooner you can figure out, like, what can I do to help my team win today and have that mentality, it's going to serve you well in the long run. Because if you're, especially in today's college baseball game, you might play on four different college baseball teams. That's not unheard of. And then once you get into pro ball, you might have seven, eight, nine different teams before you actually make the big leagues. So learning a good warm up routine that gets you prepared to play every single day, whether it's game 7 of the World Series or uh, October 15th in the middle of the fall, allows you to get hooked up and get in the right space mentally so you can go out and play your best that day. So I mean, I think college baseball is better than it's ever been. You know, junior college, the old saying, well, I'll just go JUCO. I'm not sure if that was ever true. That was probably one of the biggest misconceptions ever of in all of college baseball. Because
Agreed.
even back in the day, I mean, you had some really really good players that ended up in junior college baseball, and so I think you have to go where you can get on the field and play. I mean that's what separates the game of baseball from the other sports. The NFL, NBA, you get drafted, you pretty much go straight to the professional, the big leagues, so to speak. Baseball, it's about repetitions and monotony and over and over and over and over. Those big leaguers make the game look so easy, and yes, they're talented, but they've also taken every shortstop in the big leagues taken thousands upon thousands upon thousands of ground balls. So there's really not a play that happens that catches them off guard or surprises them, and they understand how to prepare as if every pitch is going to be put in play and hit to you, which I feel like that's when a lot of errors are made. You just don't expect the ball to be hit to you. You're just not ready, and then all of a sudden it catches you off guard, and you're trying to play catch up a little bit. But no, I think preparation and just you have to be mentally tough and you have to be driven. You can't rely on 15,000 people being at the game so that you can be pumped up and ready to play. Like if you're relying on adrenaline to get you going, I think that's not a good thing.
You made a point there about how in years past that there's always this perception of high school to JUCO. I'll have a spot at JUCO. Can you talk a little bit about, the reasons why in today's world we have less rounds at the major league draft level? More athletes are getting I don't want to use the word pushed, but directed to the college game. In a lot of ways, Major League Baseball wants athletes to go develop at a school like Blinn, get prepared, understand the business component of the game, meaning the hours that it really truly takes. Talk a little bit about the caliber now of athlete going into the college game. It's elite. We're not losing guys to the draft out of high school anymore.
No, there's some really, really good players that aren't even getting opportunities to play in college,
Right.
much less get a chance to go play professional baseball. I mean, you're everybody kind of COVID is the easy fallback,
Right.
and a lot of people want to blame things on that, and it was a component of it, but we talked a little bit before we got on air about how the major league draft has gone from 40 rounds to 20 rounds, and 15 years ago, if you were 22nd, 23rd, 24th rounder, you signed. You
Right.
were in professional baseball. So, in fact, it was a if you're 25th rounder, that was a big deal. Like you got drafted in the 25th round. That wasn't considered a low draft pick. That was a
Right.
relatively high pick. And so you're talking 20 full rounds that they completely cut out. And now all of those kids are going to college when the majority of those kids would have signed. I mean, you had 38th, 39th rounders. I mean, Mike Piazza
Right.
was what, like a
62nd.
yeah, like
62nd round. Yep.
crazy,
Right.
crazy how low he was drafted, and his story is a great story because he made it. But all those kids are ended up in college, and none of the college roster sizes have changed. That's where you're finding the overlap there. Like we're still like a number for us in the fall is 45. That's a good number for us. We try to stay as close to 45 as we can. We've had years before we're closer to 60. We've had other years where we were below 45, but I think there are some junior colleges out there that are taking 60, 70, 80 players, but I think they're in the minority when it comes to college roster sizes. But to me, I mean, you got 8 shortstops trying to take ground balls that's short every day. I don't feel like you're really getting the best opportunity to get better. I mean, it's 15 minutes between every single ground ball you get, and so that's one of the reasons we've tried to stay at 45, just so you have your 2 or 3 shortstops, and they're getting constant ground balls, and they're getting more opportunities to get better and work during practice, and so in Division 1, it's what they're going down to 32 this
34.
year, 34.
34. Yeah.
So I mean, and they were taking 45, 50 guys in the
Right.
fall and cutting down to 38, and there's a lot of horror stories about the kickbacks and Division 1s taking players from the university, or Division 1 junior colleges taking players from Texas or Arizona State, and that does happen. I'm not gonna say it doesn't happen, and anybody that says they wouldn't do that or take those kids is not being honest. Like, if you got a chance to get a kickback from the University of Texas, you're gonna take them. I mean, we wanna win just like anybody else does, but at the same time, I think the cream will always rise to the top. I mean, the best players are going to figure out a way to overcome whatever obstacles put in front of them, and that's just the way of life, really. I mean, life's not easy. It's not even necessarily fair. I mean, you just have to deal with it, and you're going to have to compete no matter where you're at. It doesn't matter if it's a Division 3 junior college, which is non-scholarship, or NAIA. Like you're lying to yourself if you think you're going to step on any college baseball field at any level of college baseball and there's not going to be really, really good players. Look at LSUS, I think
Right.
Shreveport
Yeah. Yeah.
won
Shreveport. Yep.
59-0. And I've actually seen people on X kind of knocking them, saying, "Oh, well, they don't play." Like, do you know how 59-0? I
Right.
mean, I don't care who you are, what level you're at. Like, that is insane. That is unbelievable. I mean, they didn't get enough publicity for that, in my opinion. I mean, what a phenomenal job by that coaching staff and those players. Like, I mean, it's truly remarkable.
Yeah, Brad is the first guy to tell you that he's got a lot of JUCO guys. That everybody's looking for opportunity, and I don't care if you're on the volleyball team, water polo, you go undefeated in baseball. You're playing 50 plus games, and you're in a World Series and you're beating teams by 10 runs. NAIA level is not like an easy layup as a baseball team. It's not like 14U travel ball. Coach, I really want to I get a lot of parents that say, well, Blinn and San Jack and Chipola and LSU Eunice, they don't take any guys from outside Louisiana or Texas or Florida. Can you talk a little bit about? I know you have some boys from Colorado, and you don't care where the guys come from. Is if they're talented and they have an interest in Blinn, I mean, you're going to give them an opportunity. Can you talk a little bit of how you recruit, where you recruit, and what makes a good fit for Blinn with regard to the baseball program?
Well, we recruit nationally. I mean,
Right,
now we are in Texas, so, common sense tells you the majority of our players are gonna be
right,
from Texas. So, junior colleges are limited to 24 scholarships. So, I mean, anybody over 24 is paying for their school. So, that's where it becomes a little difficult with, kids outside the state of Texas because it's hard to ask a kid from Massachusetts or New York to come all the way down here and pay for their school if they're not one of those 24. Well, like those 24 go pretty quick. I mean, you're talking a 45-man roster and 20 of them are pitchers usually.
right,
Um, so I mean, 24 like every year, scholarships available for each season, it's usually less than 10. I think there's a misconception that like, oh, well, they have 24 scholarships and you're gonna sign 24 guys every year. And that's not how it works. Like you have 16 or 17 freshmen on your team, 10 or 11 of them are on scholarship. If you have 15 scholarships available every year, I would consider that like a huge number of scholarships available. So, um, in my experience, it's hard to ask a kid to come pay all that money and to come all the way down here because it's going to cost them a little bit more because they're paying out of state tuition. But at the same time, and I've maintained this since the day I started coaching, like the difference between the great teams and the good teams, it's usually your walk-on guys. Like the better everybody's scholarship guys are pretty good, but when you can get good players to come and want to be a part of your program and pay for their school, that's really what's going to set you apart from the other schools you're competing against. And I think that's probably a fair statement at any level of college baseball. Scholarship guys are scholarship guys. And when you can get guys that impact your program that are paying for their school, that's where you see it kind of push you over the edge. And so um, it's kind of betting on yourself a little bit. Hey, I want to go to Blinn and get coached by those guys, and I would put our track record up against anybody's at any level as far as getting guys where they want to go and developing guys because at the end of the day, that's the end goal. It's not winning or losing baseball games. It's developing your players and helping them achieve their dreams and their goals. And I mean, that's probably my favorite thing about junior college baseball, like getting to watch guys go make the big leagues or play in the SEC. And, like I got two guys at LSU right now that Friday can't get here fast enough. Like I can't wait to watch them play in Omaha. It's uh it's just one of the biggest blessings that I feel like we get as junior college baseball coaches is to get to see those guys and watch their careers develop.
and I always say this to parents and athletes, one of the biggest, joys as a coach. Obviously, as dads, we watch our sons and daughters grow up, but watching your athletes that you've had the ability and opportunity to coach move up and go higher levels, that makes us darn proud. We may not be parents, but we're certainly a part of their life in a small way. So, Dusty, I want to say thank you for taking the time to join me today. And parents, all of Blinn baseball's contacts, their camps, their coaching staff, all available on the Blue Book. I really encourage you to create your profile, send it over to Coach Hart, let them take a look and see if it might be a potential fit. But best of luck, not only this upcoming season, but in years ahead. And if we can ever do anything for you, Coach, please let me know.
No, I appreciate that, and thanks for having me again. And just to finish off a little bit, don't parents and kids don't ever limit yourself.
Amen.
Just put your head down and go to work, and if it's meant to be, it's going to be meant to be. But if you fight through some stuff and come out on the other side, I mean, that's some of the best success stories you'll ever have. You know, those guys that just wouldn't take no for an answer and just kept fighting. And I mean, everybody could probably agree that that's pretty awesome when guys do that stuff.
I agree. So one of my best players that I've ever had the experience of working with went to an all boys high school, never played any meaningful innings in high school over 4 years, was told he would never play in college at any level, ended up putting his head down and ended up going to a 4 year school, was a third team All American Division One and played at the Cape, which you got to be pretty gosh darn good to play at the Cape.
Yeah,
So I agree with that. Put your head down, go to work. You know, it's a lunch pail mentality, as Chris Pollard will tell us. Blue collar,
blue
just
collar.
take care of your business and worry about your road, not somebody else's road. Dusty, thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Let me know if I can ever help you.